Welcome to the City Current Show, powered by Hagen Botham Insurance and Financial Services.
This show focuses on sharing good news and powering the good in our community. Now here's your host, Andrew Bartolotta.
Welcome to the City Current Show, where we spotlight individuals and organizations making an impact in powering the good in our community and around the world. I'm your host, Andrew Bartolotta, and today on the show, we have one of the most influential voices in social media and digital marketing, Rachel Pedersen. She's built an 8-figure business and cultivated an audience of millions of followers, while also making it her mission to help everyday people do the same without losing their minds in the process, me included. So today we're going to dive deep into the content that converts, the myths of going viral, building a sustainable business, and the power of owning your story. Rachel, welcome to the show.
Woohoo, Andrew, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Absolutely. Okay, so I was saying before we even got on about how I already feel like I know you, but for those that may be sleeping under a rock or don't scroll on social media daily, go ahead and give us a short synopsis of who you are and your story.
For sure. So I'm Rachel Pedersen. I'm a Minnesota-based mom of 3. This is so wild. I have a kid going into high school. So
Wow.
I don't feel old enough to have a kid in high school. So I'm like, okay, this is just where we go now. So I'm a social media strategist. I've worked with so many amazing clients. I've done partnerships and or worked with clients such as Dean Graciosi, ClickFunnels, American Express, and I trained Tony Robbins' social media team. So I've had some pretty cool experiences. And I think the reason people come back to me is because I'm a normal person. I don't pretend like my whole life is perfectly polished and photoshopped. You don't have to do that in order to succeed on social. So I share my story and my journey and the messy parts too, because gosh, life is messy sometimes. So that's been a part of like kind of my hallmark I'm comfortable with showing that on social, and more people can be too.
Yes, and we're going to get into a little bit of that messiness. And that's one of the things that really drew me to follow you, is just the transparency, authenticity.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is how I'm showing up. And I've got some great ways for you to learn from me and the things that you're doing. So let's get into a little bit about your past, especially your experience, say, as a single mom. How did that shape the way you led today?
Oh my gosh. This is such interesting timing. I had a call with my sister, a few months ago, and I was just kind of like, I don't know what to do about this one situation that was happening. And she goes, I think you've honestly forgotten who you are. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And she's like, the Rachel I know is resilient and bounces back. And you're like, I'm a survivor and a fighter no matter what. Like, so get back up and stop your complaining. And I was like, oh yeah, good point. Being a single mom, I was on welfare. So I have like track marks on my arms from donating plasma and doing like medical experiments on my body, which is probably not good, just to be able to pay for things like my bus pass and diapers. And it was a time where I learned that resilience and resourcefulness is a big thing. So I'm still very, very frugal about 99% of the things in my life. I hate spending money. I love like saving. I love a good deal. And those things I think were really built in that time, if that makes sense. So if anyone's listening and they're like, oh, but I haven't had a clean past, or my life is messy, or things have happened, that's okay. Like, take the lessons you learned in those seasons and apply them to now. And I use them every single day. But being a single mom actually taught me, like, there's always, not that being a single mom is low, but being in poverty is about almost as low as it can get. Like, there's always a low that could go lower. That reminds me to like show up and make things happen every single day. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's may sound from a place of privilege, but when you go through adversity, there's this superhero part that comes inside of you where you're like, I'm more resourceful. I am able to creatively solve problems in a different way than maybe someone that was just handed something. So I think that helps fuel the work that you're doing now and helping others, because you know what it's like to scrap and find ways to be resourceful. And so you get into the industry of content creation, marketing, digital marketing.
Mhm.
Give us a little bit of what that field looked like for you as you were getting into it.
I actually have a really cool Tennessee story coming,
All
so
right,
this is
cool.
gonna be fun. So I was actually I was a hairstylist. I was going to school to be a hairstylist, taking out tons of debt the whole time, riding the bus hour and a half each way. And then once I was a hairstylist, I met my husband Paul, and we have a wild story, probably for another day. We met and then eloped 13 days later, and literally got married and started our family. And we're coming up on 11 years, but he
Amazing.
wasn't rich. He was a window washer. I was a hairstylist. We had tons of debt. We're just like, huh, okay, like this isn't exactly what we imagined life might look like, but it does. So let's see if we can go up from here. And my very first client was actually a hair salon client who came to me, and she said she owned this little company with her husband called Mrs. Winter's Chicken and Biscuits. Have you ever heard of it, Andrew?
Yes, of
Yes.
course.
Oh, right. Like a three-piece and a flaky biscuit, right?
Nothing better.
So we were actually going to try to open one in Memphis. And I was like bright-eyed and excited and delusional. And I was like, I have no money for a deposit. And the bank was like, if you can fundraise, 60 grand, you can open a Mrs. Winter's Chicken and Biscuits in Memphis. And I was like, deal. So I was like, this is going to be a slam dunk. We're going to do a crowdfunding campaign. Who doesn't love Mrs. Winters? And my dad and I actually flew down to Memphis and went and visited, Beale Street, and we visited all of the neighborhoods that we were considering. And I was like handing out flyers, and I was going, into barbershops and churches and being like, hey guys, Mrs. Winters is coming back. And they're like, who's this little girl bopping around? Like she seems psycho.
Right.
And like, but it was a wild experience. It flopped massively, got on tons of news, I think in Memphis and just across the state of Tennessee. And truth be told, it didn't happen, but Memphis is lovely. I love the soul.
Yes, we do have soul, and we are born basically in the entrepreneurial spirit. And so
Yeah.
the first grocery store, Piggly Wiggly, for Memphis, and of course you have the greats like Elvis Presley, and you have the National Civil Rights Museum, which is an ode and honor to the great work of Dr. Martin Luther King
Yep.
Jr. and the civil rights movement.
Yep.
And so there's this grit and grind that we coin here in Memphis,
Yeah.
and I see a similar theme within your life as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to switch a little bit onto the content creation and virality for so many people that are wanting to go viral, or they
Yeah.
want to create content that has reached 100+ million people a year like you have.
Yeah.
What would you say is the key to really engineering content that spreads organically?
So number one is going to be consistency. So there are a few reasons for this. You hear it all the time and you're like, I don't care about that. But what happens when you consistently create and post content, it tells the platforms, hey, this is someone we can rely on. So let's start putting their content out towards more people. That's actually the secret to the algorithm on just the platform side. But on the people side, there's this effect in psychology called the mere exposure effect, which means the more people see you or are exposed to your face, your voice, etc., your message, the more people tend to increase the amount that they like you. So just by consistently posting content, even if it's not excellent, you're going to make the platforms more happy, thus pushing you out to more people. You're going to make more people tend to like you more, which is fantastic. And then the biggest thing that I'm going to share is you have to get rid of the fear of like, what if people see this, and the cringe.
Yes.
Yeah, like because it's all cringy. 100% of the time, I feel so cringy, especially now that I have teenagers. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cringy, and I just have to get over it. And one time I put up a video that reached, I think, like 15 million people. And it was just one I did, and I was like, this is so stupid the whole time I was creating it, but I was like, but it's kind of funny. And I released it, and then the next day my daughter was like, Mom, you cannot share that, because it was a little bit edgy for an adult to share. And I was like, I love you so much, but your friends don't pay our bills. Like, this content is what moves the needle. So I got to do it. I'm sorry. I love you. At least it's not something worse. So you have to let go of the fear of being cringy. And then the third thing is, wow, that's 3 C's, and I didn't mean to do that. So consistency, let go of the cringe, and then just be open to creativity. Like, what if I were to just post something like this? Okay, let's try it. The only way you can know is trying it. You can hypothesize or imagine how it's all going to play out. You just got to post it. So get creative. Like, can I grab this Nalgene bottle and show how fast I can chug it? That could be a piece of
Yes.
content, right?
Yeah.
I know it's wild, but sometimes that stuff is what really takes off.
It really does. I love that
Uh-huh.
you sort of tied that into three C's. That's
Yeah.
fun there without even meaning to. But then
Yeah.
also, when I think about the work that I'm doing in our region, a lot of it truly is just if you're seeing a local business that has a really great product, really great customer
Yeah.
service, like going in and just like taking a video of what you're
Yes.
doing and sharing it for them because
Hmm.
so many small business owners as well struggle with
Yep.
I can't work on our business because I'm working in the business. It's hard
Yep.
to get maybe people working a
Yes.
bar for the coffee bar or whatnot, the coffee shop. And so it's like, what can we do to help as a community, another C, to then go in and support and be
Yeah,
creative? Um,
totally. Some of the best videos I've had that have like every time I do a round of these, it ends up bringing in lots of, and this isn't the intent, but it brings in lots of sponsorships is when I go out of my way to talk about brands, whether
mhm.
it's books and authors or software that I love, like do what you want the end result to be. So if you want to be someone who's sponsored, and we've generated a lot in sponsors. I'll just be super honest. It's been amazing and shocking, but it's mostly because we created so much content around like, I love this coffee, or I can't stand my mornings without this depuffer underneath my eyes, or this software helps me with videos. So yeah.
Yes, I've seen that too. Even when in the dawn of social media, a decade now, like almost a decade and a half ago, it's crazy. We're
Yeah.
all just getting older, but more experienced is the word. And so it is funny to see just how businesses are still looking for those
Mhm.
organic ways to connect with influencers from a regional standpoint, a local standpoint, but then also
Yeah.
national. You don't have to have millions of followers to
No.
have brand deals.
No,
Um,
I had less than, I think I want to say across all platforms, I had less than maybe 30,000 combined when I started getting sponsorships, but that's only because that was the time that I started creating those videos that almost seemed as though they were sponsored. So
mhm.
wild.
Yes, I've seen the same
Mhm.
there. What role do you think short form video plays in business growth strategy today? What's
Oh,
the
yeah.
most underrated strategy for creating it, you think?
Hands down, short form video is going to be like the trailer for what people can expect. You can generate leads and sales from it for sure. But the real thing is like kind of testing things. Like, does this angle resonate? And it's like the fastest way to quickly create something. I don't know about you, but I find like long form video is it's emotionally a little more draining. And so
Yes.
short form, it's like I can test 10 angles in the time that it takes to create one long form video. So allow it to be your test platform. I do the same with short form text instead of um, making everything long form and putting my heart into like, let's make this super valuable, etc. I test the angles, see how they perform on threads first. But my favorite way to create is actually to plan everything out ahead of time. And so I'll sit down and be like, okay, here are the 30 titles I want to create for YouTube videos over the next 30 to 90, 120 days, whatever. And then I just go down the list. And that helps me a lot because if you have shiny object syndrome or imposter, you're like, no, I'm just following the list I gave myself already. I already committed to these. I just got to work my way down this list and I'll get to every single thing in time.
I love that you say that because you inadvertently have held me accountable. And when I see that you are sharing content
Mhm.
that is both actionable, but you are also creating space for you're creating space for sorry, I just lost my train of thought. So I'm gonna edit this out. It's what's so nice to be on this side. I can just edit it out.
That is nice.
I think you've also held me accountable and just following you on social media and seeing that you have consistency and you are also intentional in what you're posting. And so having that spreadsheet or whatever source that you are holding yourself accountable with, this is what I want to post for myself, for my business. One thing I see still to this day, a decade and a half later, is that people are not tapping into their personal brand as much. You don't have to have a business per
No.
se to have a personal brand, and it amplifies you leaps and bounds to your competitors just in any industry that you're in. And so in any of the work that I've been able to do, if someone can go ahead and Google you before you go in and they see the work that you're doing, like that's a
Totally.
no-brainer. And
Yeah.
so I definitely want our viewers and listeners not only to follow Rachel Pedersen, but then to be aware of what she's posting, why she's posting it, because as not only an owner of brands, but as your personal brand as well, it's so important.
Oh, it grows. I will say it has the greatest potential for fastest growth up to about 8 figures. And then that's where you kind of need an umbrella brand to take over. That's kind of what I've seen is the glass ceiling. It stops at about 8 figures per year, but that's plenty for one person. That
Yes.
is plenty for a company, you know? So, and that's kind of when the switch needs to happen. Like logos and business names, they can grow, but they're so much slower in the beginning for sure because it doesn't feel personal.
You've built several companies, including RBP Production, Centero, and the Viral Touch. How do you stay focused and aligned
Yeah.
across multiple ventures?
So the biggest thing is everything always goes underneath the umbrella of Rachel Pedersen. And that's a decision that we made is just let's build up this personal brand probably forever. So everything just is branded underneath those. And I love that. And I wouldn't trade that for the world at this point. Um, One thing that really helps me is to know like where is the greatest opportunity right now because it's not always going to be equal across all brands. So
Mhm.
we can switch between like RBP education and then switch to more like okay, so now we're doing the viral touch, we're doing consulting and clients. I'm a big believer of shifting business to where things are going. And I think a lot of businesses they're taught to not like to just stay the course and not shift, and they're kind of running into some trouble now because they're like wait, what used to work isn't working anymore. And that's when you gotta bob when other people weave or introduce a low ticket when there's only high tickets or vice versa.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great advice there. And I think for so long, I was told being a jack of all trades would be like a master of none. But in this work that we're doing now in content creation and the different platforms, but then the different mediums that you're creating this content in, it's important to uh cast a wider net into the work that you're doing and the learning that you have.
Yes.
um and one of the great things that you offer are these courses.
One of the big things that we've done that I have loved is we have a lot of low ticket offers. So where most people are like, oh, this is all my programs are 997, 1997, 2,997. That's totally great. And I love those price points. They're fantastic. But I create programs for people who are where I started. I grew up in poverty, didn't see a path out. I became a single mom on welfare, food stamps, and I didn't know how in the world am I going to get from where I am to what I imagine, which is hopefully a better life. So I create all my products priced based on that woman, and so everything is pretty darn affordable.
I think that is the
Mhm.
key. And I love receiving your emails
Oh,
and
thanks.
encouraging other people
Yeah.
to subscribe as well. And
Mhm.
then I think having those different price points is a reflection of
Mhm.
just knowing your audience as well and
Yeah.
knowing that there's different points that they're in, steps in their life. What
Yes.
would you say is a platform that you think creators are sleeping on right now?
I have two that immediately come to mind, YouTube and Pinterest. These two are massive. I just spoke with Pinterest corporate a few weeks ago, and they were explaining to me like their demos behind the scenes, and they are one of the fastest growing platforms, and especially with the next two generations, which is So exciting. So that's Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and younger millennials as well. So if you want to have a lasting business brand, personal brand, any of the above influence, Pinterest is showing a lot of potential for growth, which I'm so excited about because I love it. And then also, YouTube is fantastic. I have videos from 5 to 8 years ago that are still performing on YouTube. Same thing's true on Pinterest with pins. So, those are two platforms that you will not see the immediate benefits necessarily on, but they rack up so many views, leads, and opportunities over time.
This might be a kind of controversial topic when it comes to content creation and such, but
Yes,
I want Rachel Pedersen's I would
official
love to have
opinion.
your official um take on it. Is
Mhm.
artificial intelligence in the
Yeah,
work that we're doing, how
yes.
has it benefited you? What are some of the
Mhm.
things that kind of make you cringe and say, okay, maybe we shouldn't be doing that? What's your
Yes.
take?
Okay, so I love having an open mind. I'm a slower adopter usually with technology because I don't like change when it comes to my systems and workflows unless it's really, really good change. Um, so I'm the first thing I did is I stepped back as an as a consumer and I said, how do I feel about this? When it
Mhm.
comes to Chat GPT and like AI copy, here's the biggest problem is that most people do not understand what good copy is or what's actually going to connect. So they're just spewing out a whole bunch of Chat GPT created stuff that sounds like Chat GPT.
Yes.
I'm not against it if it still gets the same intention and movement across, but it's not because people are literally just being like, type a caption for this. And then a caption's created, it doesn't follow a framework or psychological influences or effects or frameworks. And so I'm just like, this is rough. It reads like you just plug this in. The
Yes.
biggest thing I noticed is that like heart is missing. So if you're going to use some type of chat GPT to augment your process of formatting or grammar or just putting a placeholder, you have to go over it with a human touch to make it feel human because otherwise there's just this lackluster feel. It's so bad. And then as a consumer, I've been watching. I love things that make workflows make sense, but most people don't know what they're doing with Chat GPT, and it makes me nervous for them. So then, as a consumer, so we've been rewatching old Bachelor shows. Like
Oh,
we're
fun.
on Jason Mesnick right now, and the commercials are about half AI created. And it is missing nuance. It is missing characters. It is missing realistic freckles and moles. And like today, I woke up and my eyes are just like looking so tired. And I'm like, that's reality. People
Mhm.
don't want the best version of us all the time. And I found that as we were consuming these commercials, I was like, I'm zoning out. I hate this. I don't feel like there's heart. It just feels like they checked a box and said, okay, well, that's done now. Well, it's done. It didn't move anyone. You're missing the point, which is the emotion. And whether you're using real humans or AI in any capacity, you have to get the intention and the heart of something to move people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the stamp of approval
Yes.
from you, Rachel. And I love that so much because I'm giving so
Yeah.
many workshops and webinars to nonprofits and small business leaders on
Uh-huh.
leveraging AI, but still keeping your heart at
Yes.
what you're doing and the
Yeah.
why. And they're so worried about it replacing a job or something, but it's also about the human touch, the
Mhm.
human
Yeah.
ability to connect and
Yes.
have empathetic conversations. And
Yep.
so, yes, you can totally tell when someone just copies and pastes on a on a chat GPT, just hey, give me the caption. There we go. But
Yeah.
what can you do to create, like you said, and I'm a slower adopter as well, which I think is smart.
I do too.
Because you don't need to just go all in and then figure like sometimes it's just too much, at least for me.
It really
But
can.
when it comes to I think being slower to adapt is
Mhm.
important to know also about the rights and what you're putting in, what sort of
Mhm.
proprietary information are you putting in, but then
Yep.
having that established workflow for you and your business
Yes.
needs to be important and put into a place of that you naturally
Humanizing.
built.
Yeah, like a humanization for sure. An emotional, yeah, I always look at like the emotion wheel and ask there's like the, 36 or whatever emotions. And I always like to ask myself, like, what is this checking the box for? Because if I don't know the emotion that's going into this and how to connect with why my person's crying over there and stressed out, um, there's no way AI can figure it out for me because it cannot read minds and discover like nuance in where human behavior is moving.
You touched on behavioral health,
Mhm.
mental health, emotions, and you're a big proponent for that and living in joy and momentum and a
Yeah.
place of wellness.
Yep.
And I see wellness becoming a huge piece, not only since the pandemic, but I think even as we go into 2030, I feel like we're going to dive in as the world becomes more AI.
Yes.
I think emotions and wellness becomes even more important for the work that we're doing with each other. And so, what would you say for someone that feels overwhelmed in this content centric world
Oh, yeah.
when you know firsthand what it means to live with a behavioral health uh, state, but then
Mhm.
also to work towards that human aspect of content creation?
Yeah, I'll just say this. So I have bipolar type 1, and I'm actually really proud to share it because even as we were rewatching old episodes of The Bachelor, like they would call it depression, and then later on it would come out like, oh, this person has bipolar. And I'm a big believer of like just like being yourself in the process. I find that content creation is really hard when I'm trying to emulate someone who seems more perfect than me. Whether it's, I actually won't even name names because their lives aren't perfect, but their presences seem that way. So I'm like, okay, where am I at today? Okay, today my eyes look tired. My hair is okay. I still got to film a video. And it just is. It's not my best hair day, not my best makeup day, but we still got to create content. So almost this like radical acceptance of what is, that's helped me a lot. I have days where I wake up, it's really hard to get out of bed. And something that helped me was, what if I put on a favorite comfort show on the TV and just, use my little lap desk and work from bed today? Does that work today? And it does. So get clear on like, where am I at? Not where should I be, and then create from that place, even if it's not all perfect, even if your books aren't all organized or whatever, just create the content piece as is.
Yes. Thank you
Mm-hmm.
for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
That is so important and resonates with everyone else, including myself, who've
Yeah.
spent time in a more depressive state. Um,
Yep.
and so yeah, I think just being authentic and transparent is
Yeah.
crucial. So we're wrapping up, and I would love for people to learn how they can not only follow you, connect with you, but how they can hire you, how they can purchase your book, purchase workshops, purchase courses. Give us
Mm-hmm.
what we can do to support you and your efforts.
Oh, well, I hope this also supports everybody too. So if you go to rachelpedersen.com, I'm really proud of this. I've been blogging 3 to 5 times a week for, I want to say 4 or 5, maybe even 6 weeks, because we're at like 32 blogs.
Wow.
And yeah, it's been like a pride and joy. It's totally free. You can read them. There are tips and value steps and everything. If you go to rachelpedersen.com, that's all E's and a D in my last name. And then all of our free resources are there. Some of our paid resources are there, and you can learn more.
Well, Rachel, thank you so much for spending time with us today and not only sharing strategies and insights, but for being a living example of success not requiring perfection, but doing it in a way that everyone else can show up as themselves. And thank you for inspiring me and so many others to create content well and create content with heart and emotion. Thank you so much for coming on the City Current Show.
Oh my gosh, Andrew, thank you so much for having me.